What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am here with NPL Season 6, Week 7 against the Bayern Mewnich, coached by Schady. Excuse me, the Bayern Mewnich. I gotta make sure to say this correctly. He's a really cool guy. Definitely check him out. One of my favorite people on YouTube, just in the PokeTubering community. He's a really cool guy and someone I would recommend you try to get to know a little bit, as well as check out his content because he has some pretty fun stuff to watch. So let's just dive into this matchup a little bit. As originally, if we think back to the beginning of the season when we had PokeAimMD in the league, this was going to be my matchup against him. So, you know, it kind of sucks that I have to play someone as bad as Schady in place of PokeAimMD, but I'm just kidding. Shady's actually really, really good in the format, and I'm excited for this matchup for sure, as I've never gotten to play him in an official match. We've done some mock battles and stuff, just messing around, but we've never actually played an official match before, and it's going to be a good one for sure. To his defense, I feel that his team kind of leaves a little bit to be desired, and that just kind of goes back to the initial draft, as it wasn't the best draft in the world, to put it politely, but he's made some nice transactions and such to make it a relatively threatening draft for sure, as he has Mewnich, Torrenti, both of which are Z eligible, and Mammothwine, and that offensive core really covers pretty much everything, period. So he has offensive threats, that's for sure. He also has Sovali, which can take on any of its types. Sovali is one of the new Pokemon in this generation, and via the rules of the NPL, we allow whoever has Sovali to use any of those types, including the normal form, at any given time. So it's kind of a perk to having Sovali. It's still not amazing, I don't think, in the format, but it definitely makes it more threatening to have the ability to be really any type. So that's pretty cool. And then he also has Tangrowth, Drapion, Porygon 2, Tyrantrum, Raichu, which is Z eligible, Skarmory, Megamedi, and a scary Rapidash. So he's got a pretty interesting team for sure. Definitely, I would say it's kind of top heavy with the mons that I mentioned earlier, but even his defenses are pretty annoying for stuff like Megalop, especially for stuff like Megalop, as Tangrowth and Skarmory both are pretty easy users of a Rocky Helmet, which I fully expect to see this week. I kind of want to say most likely on Skarmory. He might even bring both, though, if he's really fearing Megalopunny, as outside of those two Pokemon, Megalopunny just runs train through him. So I would not be surprised at all to see both Skarmory and Tangrowth both holding a Rocky Helmet just to deal with Megalopunny, as well as things like my Azumarill, for example. So that's partially something I'm expecting this week. The Manaphy, I feel like, is kind of a wild card, as my team really does have good enough defensive synergy to where an offensive Manaphy cannot possibly beat everything on my team, as well as the fact that I have several things that do outspeed base 100. So I'm not exactly sure if Manaphy will come. It obviously can, because Manaphy is worthy of a round 1 pick, and it was the round 1 pick of this draft, but it's not something that I would expect as much as I would expect the likes of Torrenti and Mammothwine, as both of those put in a ton of work against my team, especially more an offensive Torrenti with maybe a Life Orb, or even Choice Specs Hurricane. Either one of those do a lot of damage to my team for sure, and I would not be surprised to see either of those come, and I expect both of them to come, to be honest. The team I'm more or less expecting here would involve some combination of Tangrowth, Torrenti, Mammothwine, Mega Medicham, as Mega Medicham I can't switch into, as pretty much no one can unless they have something named Cresselia on their team, and Tyrantrum is not that impossible to come either, despite the fact that it is a low tier. It's a pretty good switch into Talonflame as well. So those are all mons that I think could come. Tangrowth, Skarmory, already mentioned those. The Manaphy is a possibility. Otherwise, he really likes bringing Porygon 2. I don't really think it has the best matchup here, but he loves bringing it. It's Schady. I kind of expect him to maybe try to bring it, and honestly, I do have my eyes on Rapidash as well. Despite how non-threatened it really is, it does actually have pretty good coverage for my team, so something to have my eyes on as well. But let's just hop on over to the team builder real quick so I can talk a little bit about what I decided to bring this week. So first and foremost, I do have the Megalopunny. This set is actually designed to set up in front of Skarmory. So if he does bring Skarmory, this actually beats it 1v1, as the defense investment does allow me to survive an uninvested Brave Bird, as well as it was just the remainder that I had left after outspeeding, or after speed creeping his fastest mon, which I believe in this case was a choice Scarfed, or a +1 Tyrantrum was what I was going for with the speed investment here. But of course that means that I'll need to get rid of the Rocky Helmets, as if it is a Rocky Helmet Skarmory or Rocky Helmet Tangrowth, which this also can set up on decently well, I need to make sure that They no longer have the Rocky helmets, and in doing so, I'll be running knockoff on one of my mons that I'll talk about here in a little bit. But like I said, this is designed to set up on the Skarmory. Now, how is it going to do that? Well, if I click high jump kick as he goes hard into Skarmory, Skarmory typically can avoid a 2-hit KO from Jolly Mega Lopunny pretty easily. That said, I don't at all anticipate him to go straight for a Brave Bird after taking high jump kick damage, so he's probably going to click Roost. And what that means is I'm going to stay in on that Roost play and click high jump kick again, because the second he clicks Roost, the second he gets encored into Roost. And at that point, I click Power Up Punch, Power Up Punch, Power Up Punch, and then he has nothing left to take a hit for Mega Lopunny. So I feel like this set is really, really effective against him. Plus, Encore doubles as a nice tech to deal with the likes of Setup Manaphy, as well as just other general setup threats on his team, as I believe he only has 2 priority options on his team, being the Mamoswine and the Mega Medicham, so he won't really have many ways of dealing with the Lopunny once it has the boosts as well. So I really do think it's solid against him overall, and the team is being built around Mega Lot this week. Now, a nice defensive mon this week is the Mandibuzz. This is just a leftovers variant, pretty standard overall. EV spread does allow me to take on a variety of threats on his team, most notably the Torn-T, as otherwise Torn-T just runs train through my team, so I needed a good counter to that. Strongly consider something like Electros, but that's not really a counter when he can just click U-turn and get momentum with something like, I don't know, Mega Medicham that I can't switch into, so not really ideal to bring Electros this week, but Mandibuzz definitely was a little better on that, because this investment does allow me to always take 1 hit for Mega Medicham from full if I absolutely have to do so, which is not something I really ever plan to do, but you know, if it's late game or something, it might be necessary and etc. So that's why I have the little bit of extra defense investment, and of course the Spadef to take the Hurricanes from Torn-T, and then a little bit in speed just to speed creep a speed creeping Skarmory, I think is what this was. Yeah, just in case he tries to speed creep me with Skarmory. Skarmory, I believe, is base 70, this is base 80, so I just wanted to be able to outpace that, because I do have Taunt, which is very, very useful against all of his walls, as this actually shuts down all of his walls that he could possibly bring. As long as I don't let this thing get status, I'm in good shape, as the combination of Taunt, Toxic, Foul Play beats pretty much everything on his team, as he doesn't have a Fairy type, and Fairies are generally the best response to Mandibuzz. The only possible Fairy he has is Silvally, and even so, that's not something I would be that threatened by, I don't think, as I do have a lot of checks to that, as well as the fact that I can still Toxic it, and it's not your typical Fairy where I can just run a Aromatherapy to get rid of a Toxic. So overall, I think this is really, really good against him, and we'll see how that goes. So next up is the Latias. This is my dedicated defogger this week, as well as serving as somewhat of a lure for the Mamoswine, as well as a nice check to Manaphy, as even a +3 from a Tail Glow Manaphy cannot OHKO this because of my Yachi Berry, which could definitely prove to be useful, as I do fully expect to see coverage something along the lines of Scald, Ice Beam, and Grass Knot, or Energy Ball coming from the Manaphy if he does bring an offensive variant, as that does cover my entire team, and I don't think he can really afford to bring anything but that coverage. He might bring Shadow Ball, and if he does, that kind of sucks, but I feel if he brings Shadow Ball, then he's probably not going to have Ice Beam. He might not have Ice Beam via Shadow Ball, in which case my Ferrothorn can wall the Manaphy as well. So overall, I felt this was pretty good. It also is nice to give me a solid, guaranteed switch into Mega Medicham, as obviously if Mega Medicham carries Ice Punch, which I fully expect it to because I have a Latias, Latias will die because Mega Medicham is just that strong. So having the Yachi Berry definitely will help with that cause as well. And T-Bolt on this allows me to make sure that Skarmory can't set up hazards in my face, as I'll be able to defog them away and force him out with T-Bolt. Even if he's a Spadef Skarmory, he's not going to be enjoying taking the repetitive damage from this and just getting worn down and potentially paralyzed. So overall, I think this is really good against him as well. Draco Meteor hits the Mamoswine very hard. It doesn't OHKO the Mamoswine or the Mega Medicham, but it does do enough damage to where they both will be in range of dying to hazard soon, as well as in range of dying to potentially Power Up Punch from my Mega Lopunny, which is something that a lot of my team is designed to do. So that is the Latias. Next up is the Talonflame. This was a set that I played around with for a while, as it was kind of tricky to find a good Talonflame set this week. Shout out to my buddy Bird, he did help me with building this team a little bit, and we were thinking over this Talonflame set, and we were initially thinking something along the lines of a Natural Gift Talonflame to deal with the Manaphy, or to help check the Manaphy. It doesn't counter Manaphy by any means, but it does a little extra damage to Manaphy. But even so, I felt that it was better to run a Pasho Berry set just in case he ran a defensive Calm Mind Manaphy, as I really didn't have much for dealing with the defensive Manaphy on this team, at least with the original drafts. I made a couple changes here late that I'll talk about here soon, but overall, I think the Pasha Berry is really nice to give me that additional check to Manaphy, just in case the Latias is pressured to take hits from Mega Medicham and from, I don't know, anything else that comes to mind off the top of my head. Kind of blanket at the moment, but it's just nice to have this additional check, as well as the fact that this does help deal with several other members on his team. As firing off a Will-O-Wisp on the most likely switch in being the Tyrantrum is huge for the likes of my Metagross and Ferrothorn to be able to more easily switch into that later on, as well as even my Mandibuzz, as I'm pretty confident that a burned Tyrantrum can't do anything to Mandibuzz. I'm pretty sure that's the case, and that'll be a pretty good time for me for sure. But this also checks the Mega Medicham, which is very nice, very useful. It checks the Mamoswine. It obviously can't OHKO the Mamoswine, but it does threaten a Will-O-Wisp, as well as it can do a bunch of damage with Flare Blitz despite the thick fat ability. So I think this is really solid, and I felt that the speed tiers, my higher speed tier mons were essential this week, and that's the main reason why you see Talonflame here, just so I'm not bringing a bunch of bulky stuff that just gets blown back by Mega Medi. So that's that, and I don't think there's anything else I really want to say on this. I do have Flame Body on it just to maybe catch the Mega Medi with a nice burn that way as well, but that's that. So next up is the Metagross. Now this set is my dedicated rocker, as he only has one means of hazard removal on his team, and that is the Skarmory, so it shouldn't be too hard to get up Stealth Rocks on his team, and if he does want to go hard into Skarmory thinking that's a counter, well, I have Electrium Z Thunder Punch for that, and it will not appreciate that whatsoever, as my investment does allow me to outspeed an uninvested Skarmory, and that just means that he'll essentially die to the combination of Electrium Z Thunder Punch and another Thunder Punch. So that is if it doesn't just die to one in the first place, which I'm not exactly positive on that calc. I don't think it dies, but if it's like a Spadef variant, or for whatever reason not max HP, max defense, or anything close to that, then it might die. I don't know, but it'll take a lot from it. That's the important part. And yeah, so this is pretty good against him for sure. It also gives me switch-ins to Tyrantrum, most notably, as well as kind of a soft check to things like, to most forms of Silvally, as it can't OHKO me with anything, as Metagross is pretty naturally fat. And let's see, what else? Due to the fact that I'm running Electrium Z, I cannot be OHKO'd by Knockoff from Drapion either. I don't think it actually does more than like half, so Metagross is really fat. That's pretty useful here for sure. Bullet Punch is nice to deal with the likes of, again, the Tyrantrum, as well as things like his Mamoswine, as Mamoswine does naturally outspeed Metagross anyway, so no sense in trying to speed creep an Adamant Mammal or something like that. The HP is much more useful here for sure, and Meteor Mash 4 in general, powerful coverage against most of his teams. So finally we have the Ferrothorn. This set is designed to counter Mamoswine most notably, as well as to knock off the Rocky Helmets, as is most likely Rocky Helmet mons being the Tangrowth and the Skarmory, both of which are mons that generally would feel pretty comfortable against Ferrothorn, so I do think that Ferrothorn is the best user of knockoff in this game, to make sure that Mega Lopunny isn't stopped by something as simple as a Rocky Helmet. So that's that. Protect allows me to always avoid the 2-hit KOs from more powerful Mamoswine variants like Adamant Life Orb, for example, as well as gives me an out versus Mega Medi if he is a high jump kick variant, as I don't think he wants to take 50% from landing on a Protect, so I feel like that's a pretty useful tech here for sure. And Leech Seed hits his whole team bar Tangrowth, so that's pretty useful for recovery purposes, as well as for keeping my Latias and my Mandibuzz healthy, and then Power Whip to deal with the Manaphy, as well as just do general damage to things like the Mega Medi and the Mamoswine. So yeah, that's about all I want to say on all this. The defensive core of Ferrothorn, Latias, and Mandibuzz are really, really good against him, I think, and I feel he'll really struggle to break through those. He doesn't have too many wall breakers that can deal with all three of them, and that was kind of the point in building this team. But on top of that, the offensive prowess of Mega Lopunny, a Power Punch Mega Lopunny specifically, and the SD Talonflame, or not, it's not SD, is it? I forgot. It's SD, okay. The combination of SD Talonflame and the Power Punch Lopunny, it feels really hard for him to deal with defensively as well, especially if I'm able to get rid of the Rocky Helmets. So the team's looking pretty nice for sure, and we'll just kind of hop on into the battle, shall we? So here we are, and team preview, he brought the Tornti, the Tangrowth, the Silvally, which I don't believe you can determine what type of Silvally it is at team preview. I'm not sure on that, but it turned out to be Silvally normal. I do want to do some research on that to figure out how to tell which Silvally is which, because I haven't figured that one out yet. But anyways, we figured it out mid-battle, and that's good enough, I guess. So then Porygon 2, Mega Medicham, and the Mamoswine are what he decided to bring. So most notably, no Manaphy here, and that's pretty nice, because what that does is that frees up my Latias a lot, as Latias now can pretty much recklessly switch into Mega Medicham once as need be, which, as you'll see in the battle, proves to be really quite essential, as being able to switch into the Mega Medicham once means that I should be able to get off big damage on it with Draco Meteor, unless he wants to hard switch into P2, and if he does that, then I have really good responses to that as well. So I really do think it's nice to have Lottie real freed up here because he did not bring the Manaphy, but do need to keep an eye on the Mega Medicham and the Mamoswine, as those are huge offensive threats against my team. Also worth noting to keep an eye on the Silvally, as there's not much of a way for me to know what kind of set it is going in, because it's kind of like Mew. It's really versatile, so it's really hard to predict without seeing one or two of its moves first. So that's all I really want to say on this. My best lead here is definitely the Metagross, because he did not bring the Manaphy. Now, if he brought the Manaphy, my best lead was always going to be the Latias, just in case, but because I'm expecting him to probably lead with Torrentee, my best lead is the Metagross, especially because he does not have any hazard removal. So let's go ahead and hop on into this. And we'll see what happens. So he decides to lead off with the Torrentee. Surprise, surprise. I do lead off with my Metagross, and he goes for the knockoff and does not knock off an item because I am a Z move. Awesome. So I get out my Stealth Rocks for free, and now he's going to be forced to switch out. I'm kind of expecting him to go Tangrowth, but it's not a big deal, as no matter what he goes into, it's not going to really appreciate the Meteor Mash, even though Porygon 2 kind of slurped that up. Not the biggest thing in the world. This here I'm going to go hard into my Mandibuzz, knowing it's pretty safe, and I can just fire off a taunt just in case he has Toxic or something. I don't want him to let him Toxic me on turn 4. That'd be pretty sad, as he goes into the Torn, which is kind of an interesting switch. And it turns out that he actually has Taunt on this Torn, so I guess it makes sense why he did that, but yeah, it makes sense why he did that. He wanted to taunt me and then wear me down with Hurricane, so that's a good play on his part, as I do just fire off the Toxic as he goes for the knockoff, just in case I'm a Rocky Helmet, I guess, and he goes for a Hurricane and does absolutely nothing, as I crit him with a foul play, and now he's pretty sufficiently weakened, so that's pretty cool for sure. Now here I contemplated going for another Toxic of my own as it goes into Medicham, but instead I would go ahead and go for the Roost, just to make sure I'm at full health so I can switch into this thing later. In hindsight, I kind of wish I went for a Toxic there, as I'd be able to get more damage off on the Medicham, and then go into my Latias here. I believe the combination of 2 rounds of Toxic and a Draco Meteor might have taken out the Medi, but even so, he does leave it in to take a million from this, and looking at that damage, I don't think it quite would have taken him out with 2 rounds of Toxic, but even so, he does just take me out with the following Ice Punch, as I'm not going to switch into this. Latias isn't essential to win this game because he doesn't have Manaphy, so I am free to go into my Talon. Now here, I do decide to click Will-O-Wisp, and I'll pause briefly, as I could have just gone straight for the Brave Bird, but I felt because this Porygon 2 was at full health, he very likely could have gone hard into that, as it likely, it's likely, I'm trying to think, it might be an adaptability variant. I think Porygon 2 gets adaptability. It didn't reveal to have download, which is what I'm more expected. It might be adaptability or analytic, but either way, I felt like Porygon 2 was his most likely switch in there, so I didn't want to go hard for the Brave Bird, as it really wouldn't do anything to P2, and overall it just felt most useful to just go for the Will-O-Wisp here, as I don't really fear anything that Medi does if he decides to stay in and click anything. And he does just go for Zen Headbutt, stays in, so I guess he got me there by staying in, but even so, I'm just going to click Brave Bird now, as a Burn Mega Medi is not a threat anyways. And obviously I can't set up in its face if it's doing that much to me with Zen Headbutt, so here he goes into his Mamo, and I decided it was in my best interest to go ahead and fire off the Flare Blitz, just in case, what was my thought? Just in case, I didn't want to switch, that's what it was, I didn't want to switch, without getting damage on this here, because I do want a little bit of damage on this to make sure that Ferrothorn can OHKO it, as well as potentially put it in power up punch range from my Mega Lopunny. So that's that, as I do go into my Mega Lob. Now here I'm going to go ahead and pivot back into my Ferrothorn, trying to catch the obvious Rocky Helmet Tangrowth, and he does indeed go into Tangrowth, so that worked out pretty well here, but unfortunately for me, he's actually pretty smart, and he's going to pull the switch into his Mamo. I think he was expecting me to put up a layer of spikes, and I think that's why he thought I doubled into Ferrothorn, but, and in doing so, he wanted to get up his Stealth Rocks with his Mamoswine, but he does cash this knockoff, and the 2 biggest offensive threats to my team are now gone, so now it comes down to me winning this game with my defense, probably, as I do feel Mandibuzz wins this game, period. It sure looks like Mandibuzz wins this game, as long as I don't let it get status or don't let it take any unnecessary damage. Mandibuzz should win this game on its own. I also think I can win this game with Mega Lopunny as soon as I knock off the Rocky Helmet from the Tangrowth. So those are the 2 game plans I have moving forward, and let's go ahead and see what happens. As he decides to go into his Torrentee, this is a very safe switch into my Mandibuzz, as he's going to go for the Heat Wave, and I was kind of hoping for a burn there, because if I get burned, that means I can't get Toxic, and I can recklessly switch into anything, but unfortunately, not quite how it works, as here I'm going to fire off a Toxic, expecting him to probably try to switch and get more health back with his Torrentee, as he actually stays in and just fires off a Hurricane, which was interesting, and now he's going to go for the Taunt, as I try to Roost up. So he got me there, good on him. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull the switch because I don't want to take a more damage. But I felt, okay, let me explain this play a little bit. So as you can see, I hard switch low punny into Torn. That's kind of weird, but let's talk about this. So I didn't really want to switch in my Metagross, which is the obvious switch here. I didn't want to switch in my Metagross because what that does, first of all, I was expecting him to click Heat Wave, expecting my Metagross. I felt like that was a really obvious switch, and like, why would I leave my Mandibuzz in to just get weakened by Torn? That'd be a bad play, so I expected him to expect Metagross to come in, fire off in a Heat Wave, and if I happen to go low punny, he has a chance at a burn. So that was what I thought he was going to do, but he actually goes for Hurricane. Now, I didn't want to go Metagross because my main reason for not going Metagross is that I wanted to make a switch that gave me offensive momentum, and looking at the amount of damage he took from Toxic on the previous turn, I expected him to actually survive this next round of Toxic, considering the fact that he has leftovers on his Torrentice. So expecting him to not die to Toxic here, I felt that going into Mega Low Punny was my best play. Or low punny was my best play. If it was Mega, definitely not. I died a Hurricane, but because I was not Mega Evolved yet, I knew I could take any hit he had. He'd already revealed his full moveset. He had no way to kill me, so expecting to take just like, what, 25 to 30% from Heat Wave, not very much because it's not, obviously not an invested Torn to be doing so little damage to my Mandibuzz and doing, let's see how much damage this actually did. It only did 60 with Hurricane, so Heat Wave would have done much less. So by going into low punny on a weakened Torrentice, what that lets me do is that lets me expect him to either stay in and die, or he'll go back into his Tangrowth again. So what I would do here, if he did not die from the Toxic, is I would double again back into Ferrothorn, knowing that if I can get off the knockoff on the Tangrowth, then I can win with Mega Low Punny as well as win with Mandibuzz. So what I was doing with this play was trying to set up two different win conditions. Unfortunately, he did not go for Heat Wave, instead he went for Hurricane, which I don't really disagree with the play. It just kind of sucks that I got it wrong because now I'm in kind of a tricky spot. So let's continue here, as he does actually die to the Toxic. So that play was not exactly ideal, unfortunately. But here he goes into the Tangrowth, as I'm going to go hard into my Mandibuzz, expecting him to go for a Grass move of some sort, as he goes for the Toxic and misses. Now here was that was a misplay on my part. I definitely always should have gone Ferrothorn on that turn. So that's on me. I should not have done that. Fortunately, I get rewarded for making the wrong play, and he misses the Toxic. Now, if he was able to land this Toxic, what that means is that he would have been able to, what it essentially does is it gives him a chance to win this game if he hits the Toxic, because with Mandibuzz Toxic, my defensive win condition is pretty well neutered, and my offensive win con being the Mega Low Punny is also weakened, so he definitely has a good chance to win the game if he lands the Toxic. That said, is it guaranteed? No, because all I have to do to have a good chance of winning the game myself is to get rid of the Rocky Helmet on the Tangrowth and potentially Toxic with Mandibuzz later on. So that's obviously my game plan if I was to get Toxic there. Fortunately for me, I do not get Toxic, and I'm not going to let him Toxic me either, as now I'm going to go ahead and switch into my Ferrothorn to get that knockoff off, as I'm expecting him to go for a Toxic again, maybe a Grass move, and even if he has Hidden Power Fire, it's, as you can see, not even a 2-hit KO, so I feel like it's very safe to go Ferrothorn here and fire off the free knockoff, and he does let me knock off the Rocky Helmet. So now, both Mega Low Punny and the Mandibuzz are looking like win conditions in this game, and as long as I don't choke, I should be able to pull this one out for sure. As I'm going to go ahead and reveal the Protect. He doesn't have the Mega Medicham anymore, so I don't feel the need to conceal that anymore. As now expecting him to go for a Toxic, expecting me to go back into Mandibuzz, I go into my Metagross, so that worked out pretty well, as now he's going to go hard into his P2. This is the freest of Meteor Mashes, and I get off a little bit of chip on this, and here expecting him to, I guess, just go for, I don't know, like a Tri-Attack or something, or maybe even just recover. Go for another Meteor Mash, as he actually reveals the Foul Play, so that kind of sucks as well, because now my Metagross is in range of anything from Silvally, as if it has Flamethrower, it will now kill me, and at the range I was at before, even after a Tri-Attack or something like a Shadow Ball, I felt like I would have maybe been out of range due to my huge HP investment, but even so, that's not so, and Metagross is now weakened, which is bad, as here expecting him to recover. I go ahead and pull a switch into my Low Punny, as I felt that if he went for Recover, I could then just click if he goes for a cover, I can then just click the Encore and then go for Power Punch, expecting him probably to stay in, not wanting to risk just losing his Tangrowth. As Tangrowth right now, I believe, is pretty weakened. Yeah, it's at 69. It'll come back in after Rock Set of like 80% or so, I believe, maybe a little higher, and that is in range of 2-high jump kick. So he would definitely leave his Porygon 2 in, take the Encore, and then I'd be Power Punch, and the game would be over. So I was trying to go for a win there with a 4-0 differential, but unfortunately he makes a nice play and goes for the Toxic, meaning that I am actually forced to go for high jump kick, as he does not die to Power Punch from that range. So unfortunate there for sure, as now he's going to go hard into his Tangrowth because I guess he came in at 88%. Even so, still would have been a range of 2 high jump kicks. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch into my Metagross, as I don't really think I need it at this point. I should be able to just win with Mandibuzz alone, as I'm going to go into my Mandibuzz now, and I just click Taunt. I have no other play. We're clicking Taunt, and he does fall for the Taunt as he tries to go for Toxic, and here is going to get a little bit stally per se, as Schady is just really trying to find that opening to drop a Toxic on Mandibuzz, as he knows and I know that he needs the Toxic on the Mandibuzz to have any chance of winning this game, as Mandibuzz is going to be able to defensively wall him out. And as long as I have him taunted and Toxic myself, then it's looking really good for me for sure. As here I'm just kind of fishing for the Toxic on the Savali, knowing that it's if I have the Toxic on Savali, it's definitely over, even though it's already looking pretty nice for sure, as long as he doesn't get a speed boost with Savali somehow, which it will be my full intention to not allow to have happen. So there's that. But here he's going to, yeah, there's not much really to say here. I'm just going to kind of talk about this a little bit. So the game is basically over here, as essentially he's going to end up sacking his Tangrowth here to the toxic damage, which he didn't have to do, but it would have just prolonged the game, I think, if he were to switch hard to Savali here. As it turns out to be a Swords Dance Savali with Flame Charge. So if he had gotten an opening with that, then yes, I could have definitely lost to that set. Obviously, I also had my own offensive win con that I was trying to work out as well, so it's hard to really know what would have happened if my Mandibuzz did get Toxic, and for that reason was not able to knock out the Savali in one hit with Foul Play, but it's really hard to know. It's really hard to know. So I'm sorry for the Toxic miss, I really am, but it could have gone either way, I feel, regardless of that. So that was a good game, Schady. Very, very good. Very close. Far closer than the 3-0 score indicates, and given that he didn't draft the team, that's a really solid performance on his part, I think. So as for the Toronto Raptors, we do advance to a 3-4 record, so still in the pits a little bit, but we're moving our way back up, and it's nice to get back on the winning track for sure, as we now actually still have a positive differential despite the 3-4 record, so that says something, I think. But we're +1 right now, I think, and next week we have a game against Aberforth and the Brisbane Braylims, who happen to be 6-1 right now, so they have 1 loss. So Abe's having himself a nice season, but we're going to have to give him that second loss next week, I think. And I do feel like my matchup is pretty strong as well, so we'll see how that goes for sure. But thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to check out Shady's channel if you haven't already. It will be linked in the description below. And that's all I've got. So have a good one, guys, and I will see you all next week. Peace.